Ahoy, and welcome to Titanic Talkline. I am Alexia, and I am excited as always. But this week, I am especially excited because I have what some might consider to be a childhood icon of mine, someone whose face I've known since I was 7 years old, and someone that I've gotten to know pretty well and is very, very cool. It is the one and the only Lewis Abernathy, everyone.
Hello,
Hi.
hello.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. And I just want to say thank you for letting me on your show finally. I've
Thank
been
you for
begging to get on here for years.
Thank you for coming on. Oh my God. I wish my show had been going on for years. I mentioned that I was excited to talk to you, but also because we'd talked a bit at the Titanic con and outside of just like being in the movie, you have a lot of like really interesting experience and everything. And, like, I think that some people forget that people involved with the movie don't exist in the vacuum of the movie, like you do other things.
Yeah, I do a lot of other things. I'm still marginally employed by the motion picture industry and hopefully to be gainfully so now that the strike's over.
Woo!
But yeah, no, I've got a whole life outside of Titanic. I would have to say that the year 2023 I've thought more about Titanic, beginning with the Titan thing. Well, I guess
Mm,
I got invited to lecture at Titanic Con in Vegas, where we met,
yep.
and and then the Titan thing happened, and there was a little bit of the local press. I got a couple of queries from the local press asking me to weigh in on it, which I kind of waved that off because I didn't build the damn thing, so
It,
I wasn't there. I don't know anything about it.
it
My
wasn't
good
your
friend
joystick?
James Cameron has some definitive notions, and he's been very verbal about it. But I knew P.H. Nargeolet, knew him, you
Mhm.
know, but not well enough to really speak to any of this. So I didn't. I kept my mouth shut. And then there was a Titanic Con, and then Joanne's show, RMS Titanic Reflections, it was a great thing. We went on for like 3 hours, which I think is some kind of record for me talking and anyway. And then you asked me to come on this show, and it's all been a wonderful year. But like I said, this is a big Titanic year for me. I don't think I thought this much about Titanic, in like 10 years,
Not 84 years.
not 84 years. No.
I think there's, you mentioned the Titan and the Con, which are like the Titan was international news.
Oh, yeah.
There was no way to ignore that. That wasn't some local story. That wasn't like woman with Titanic invention invents like with Titanic connection invents new pie. Like
No, no.
this was a
It was a
massive
big deal.
thing. Right. So everyone was talking about Titanic again, and it also coincided with the 25th anniversary of the film. So there were screenings around the world. So between the two of those things, Titanic mania just blew over the world again.
Yeah, I wish it did. And I wish it meant more money to me, but it hasn't. So I'm
I think
waiting for somebody to, pay me money.
I wish this show made money, otherwise I would totally pay you. But that's
No, you're so sweet. I'm actually talking about, the residuals bumped up a little bit for the movie, but
mm.
I kind of was hoping, I don't know, a commercial, something,
The
another document.
nostalgia's so strong. I've seen two commercials lately that made me think that they should do something like that. They did a commercial where they brought back the cast of Mean Girls, everyone except for Rachel McAdams. They got Lindsay Lohan, they got Amanda Seyfried, everyone else's whose name I've just forgotten. And they recently did the same thing with Clueless, where they got Alicia Silverstone back to be Cher Horowitz. And so they're really then, and they weren't just bringing back the actors. They were like, "You're going to be Katie Heron again. You're going to be Gretchen Wieners from Mean Girls. You're going to be that character." And not to say the 1912 portions, but they could totally have you back to to redo
Yeah,
your
right.
character.
I'll wear the bullet hole T-shirt again.
Who you told me who has that shirt now? You know who has that shirt, right?
Dude,
I don't remember. You told me that someone owns that T-shirt, right? Like
it's
that film.
me. I still have it.
Oh, you still have that. I
Yeah, no,
thought you
I
said
wore all my own clothes in the movie.
right.
And so Jim just said Jim always loved I wore the bullet hole T-shirt. It was a T-shirt I wore, and Jim always liked it. So when we were, talking about wardrobe for the movie, he says, I want you to wear that blowhole t-shirt. And, oh, there was another t-shirt, the Pussy Chicken t-shirt,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know I don't know how much can't remember how much it shows up in the movie, but it's like, this chicken and this cat, they're like pressed up face to face, and they're both rolling up their sleeves, and one of them saying pussy and the other one saying chicken. It's hilarious.
I
Anyway,
like that.
that shirt, and then it was all my own clothes except for there was one Hawaiian shirt that I wore at like a party scene, because apparently costume design has not evolved any farther than, oh, the fat guy put him in a Hawaiian t-shirt. So that was the only thing that they rented. But the cool thing was is they took all my clothes, and then after the show was over, like 20th Century Fox kept my clothes for like 10 years. They were in the wardrobe department lockup for like 10 years. And I kept complaining to people saying, hey, when can I have my damn clothes back?
Those
I
are
can
my
probably
actual
sell that.
clothes.
And so I actually charged them for the rental for 10 years of my costume, which turned out to be a little chunk of change.
I mean, good though.
But
That stuff, as you said, you could have sold.
I have all of my clothes from the movie, which I
Nice.
hopefully can sell.
You should, because we ran into a couple people there, and there was that, oh my gosh, there was that person who showed us a person on their phone who has a massive collection of like props and movies. So that person, spent however much money buying these gowns and Leo's things and this and
That
that. It's
guy
like,
had my complete outfit.
that's what I was saying. That guy
I,
had
I
one of your outfits.
he had the outfit, and his big thing was he wanted to get on the phone with me, and he wanted to know where I got the Russian belt buckle. No, I swear. He says, how did you come by this Russian? It was a Russian military belt buckle that I wore in the movie to hold my
I'm a,
pants up.
I'm astounded he could see it.
Yeah, me too. Because I got the whole Dunlop disease going on. So
Not only that,
people.
but just I'm not looking at people's belts when I'm watching this movie.
You got to be careful. People watch all kinds of stuff in movies.
I know. Now that I've said it out loud, I'm kind of like, well,
yeah, no, yeah, you're going to get letters.
I am. I'm going to get somebody barking at me. Well, where did you get the belt buckle then? Do you have any idea?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, are you asking for real? No, I think here's what the belt buckle thing is sort of a mystery.
I would have just said it was something that I've had for a while, because I don't really keep track of the provenance of my clothes.
I don't either. But I think what it was is in '95 when we went to photograph the Titanic for the movie. We call it the deep dive photography or something. We were making friends with the Russians, who aren't, it's a poor country. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
there I said it. Anyway, so what?
Especially in the 90s when there was a much bigger economic differential.
Oh yeah. So being friends with the Russians, they would often trade you something personal of theirs. You know what I mean? So we're always swapping, T-shirts or stuff, jackets, and then I wound up with a Russian belt.
But I think that's cool. I mean,
It's totally cool.
Yeah.
I got a Russian shirt. I got, the striped Navy shirt. It's just pretty cool.
That's how you end up with really cool stuff. I found out recently, and I should have makes so much sense to me, that apparently at roller derby tournaments, there are people that will do jersey swaps where it's just like, I thought you played cool and you played cool. And then you just switch jerseys with someone. And then, yeah, it's the same concept where it's like, cool, I have this thing that, why would I have a jersey from the middle of a team in Michigan? I've never been to fucking Michigan. Like, but I met a person who's from the middle of Michigan. I like that concept. I think it's really personal, and it's cool to buy something off someone and to support a tradesman. But I am a personal big fan of like personal trades. I think I'd like that.
That's the mystery of the belt buckle, I think.
You think, and now this guy knows that all he needs to do is go on a deep dive mission with Russian people and befriend one enough where that man feels comfortable enough to give him his belt.
I think that ship has sailed.
Pun intended.
Yeah.
I'm 12. I'm always bringing up stupid puns, but when the film came out in 97, And photography started just, ideas and all that stuff started a couple years beforehand, but you had a personal interest in the Titanic way before the movie, right?
Oh yeah, no, it was well, try and keep this as brief as possible.
No, I
My
like long
step,
stories.
yeah, my stepfather, before he became my stepfather, I think he had a lifelong love affair with my mother. I mean, he was an older gentleman, but I think he fell in love with my mom back when, my mom and dad were still married and I was just a little tyke because we met him when he was teaching at OU, University of Oklahoma, up there in Norman. And
Mhm.
that's my dad was working on his master's there. Or no, I'm sorry, his PhD.
Okay. I've been to
And
Norman actually.
I have to. You're both very sad. Anyway, so the man's name was Jack Grant. My stepfather was what do you get, geologist by trade. And the
Hmm.
interesting thing about him was he learned geology from his father, who was a geologist, who learned it from his father. This goes back to the days where it's like an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And I never knew you could be a scientist through an apprenticeship, but apparently he was.
Back in the
Anyway,
day.
and then he went to work for Conoco, and he was great at finding oil, and he wound up working for this guy named Jack Grimm. And Jack Grimm was, he made a lot of money in the oil business, and then he started looking for all kinds of things. He tried to find Bigfoot. He put a bounty on Bigfoot, a photo bounty.
Excellent.
He tried to find the Loch Ness monster. He was into a lot. Anyway, the Ark. That was, I think, the pinnacle of all of his. Was he was looking for the Noah's Ark. Anyway, at one point he was going to find the Titanic, and uh, he funded two expeditions to look for the Titanic, and I forget what years those were, but they were a couple of years before Ballard actually wound up discovering the thing. Anyway, before that, they were going back to like the late 60s, whatever. I don't know. I couldn't have been more than 10 or 12.
Hmm.
Jack Grimm came by, Uncle Jack came by with, my stepfather and my stepfather to be actually, and they gave me this book, Night to Remember. And it was the first book that I remember as a kid reading cover to cover, like in one weekend. I read the whole damn thing. And then I became that annoying kid that was like I kept rereading it and stopping people on the street. Did you know the Titanic was 880 feet, half feet long, and and it just all it took 2 hours and 40 minutes to think. I just people that you didn't anything you didn't want to know about the Titanic, I would just stop you and tell you all about. Anyway, I remember, and I didn't remember this by the time I got around to making the movie. But when I was a kid, my grandmother, who was a teacher, made me write down, what do you want to accomplish, young man? And it was like, write down 10 things you want to accomplish. And I think I only got like 4 things on the list, and then the rest of them were squiggles you couldn't read. You know how you try to get past the teacher.
Yep.
And one of them was one of them was go to the Titanic, and the
Hmm.
other one was make a Titanic movie. And I had completely forgotten that these were life goals of mine when I was like 10 or 12.
That's incredible.
And so I think, Ballard discovered it in, 84?
84 or
And
85 or something.
84, 85. And, I was just graduating from USC Cinema School. And right before Ballard, not right before, but for a few years before Ballard discovered it, I kept saying, now's the time to do a Titanic remake. Let's do it. They made Raise the Titanic, which was absolutely horrible. Uh, and so nobody really wanted to do a Titanic movie. And I thought, now that they found the Titanic thing, attitudes will change. Well, they didn't. Well, I made acquaintance with James Cameron. We became fast friends. And he said, "Hey, I want to do a Titanic movie," and I said, "Well, I want to do a Titanic movie." So we started to collaborate on a Titanic movie, and I don't know when that was. That would have been early '90s, maybe '91, '92. And it goes back and forth until Jim finally got off his ass and started seriously making a movie. You know,
Mhm.
but that's how that all came about.
I
Pretty
think
boring stuff, huh?
I don't think it's boring. I think that, I've talked about it a little bit before where it's sort of like, the movie came out in 97. That's when it hit the world. And
Oh
that's when
yeah.
sort of everyone saw it. But it was a thing and an idea for many people for many years, long before it was manifested. An idea starts from somewhere. I think the idea I brought up was his name is Satoshi Tajiri. This is the man that made Pokemon, the big Pokemon franchise. And it was like, I don't remember, that came out in 96. But I'm betting you the first time that man ever thought of Pikachu was long before 1996. You start with an idea.
Probably.
You come up with something, and it's sort of like, how long do you think he had that like little yellow mouse bouncing around in his brain before he was like, I'm gonna make a thing? And it was the same way for the movie too. It's like where it started with an idea somewhere, somehow, a long time ago.
Usually, I'm going to agree with you. I don't know. I'm trying to think offhand of movies where, hey, they had the idea and boom, they made them, they were in production next week. That sounds like a made for TV movie
I was gonna
thing.
say that's every Lifetime movie and all Disney live action
There you
adaptations.
go.
And it shows, and there's nothing wrong with it. I think that cheap entertainment is not bad entertainment. Cheap entertainment can be good entertainment. Not every movie can or should be a multi-million-dollar blockbuster. We'd be waiting a million years for movies if there weren't these straight to TV things that just kind of occupy your time, or that I know friends that play like Lifetime holiday movie bingo, not because they know these movies are good, but because they know that they're bad.
I, you are talking. I am a bad movie aficionado,
See,
and
and I think that's good.
well, I always like I would tell my film students, it's kind of like um, I can teach you a lot of things looking at good movies, but I
Right.
can teach you great things if we look at crappy movies.
Oh,
you
that's
know,
interesting.
well, I liken it to think of yourself as a NTSB inspector after a plane crash.
Mm.
Why did this movie fail?
Hmm.
Was it script, direction, performances? What was it? Was it under budgeted? Was it over budgeted? I used to say, two examples, real quick. Escape from New York
Okay.
is my classic example of an underproduced movie. That's a movie whose idea is bigger than its budget.
I have a movie
Conversely,
like that.
Escape from LA is a movie where the budget is way too big for the concept,
I
And
understand
I
that.
often said, Carpenter just a little bit less money. We might have gotten a stronger picture out of that sequel. But those
Well,
are the counterpoint, just two things from watching. One's a great movie and one's kind of a, you know.
sure. My boyfriend and I went to go see the Marvels yesterday. That's the new
Oh yeah, how was it?
it was cute. It was okay. It wasn't trash that everyone was talking about, but I think it had a few of those qualities about it. I think it was a little overproduced. I think it had a little too much money. Marvel as a whole does too, where it's sort of like we have so much money, we can do whatever we want. And when I say overproduced in this one, it's sort of like every Marvel movie has to up the stakes to the point where the stakes just seem continually impossible. And that's what this one did, where it's sort of like you had all this money, you had a roster of talent from the absolutely smoking hot Brie Larson to just everybody that you can name off. This is amazing, but you have so much good that you end up putting out something that's kind of it's like with all these actors and all their performances and Samuel L Jacksoning all over the place. You could have gotten a lot, but you used too much and got too little.
Yeah, that seems to be the trend of the Marvel. I wish I could get excited about Marvel movies. I was not a comic book person
Me
growing
neither.
up, and so I I gotta be honest. You know what I think is a great comic book movie?
Tell me.
The Rocketeer.
Writing that down.
Yeah, go check this movie out. It's considered a Disney movie back from mid '90s. Sometimes it's really, I think it's Art Deco. It's old Hollywood. It's set in the '30s. It's good stuff. I think that's a great example of a comic book movie. I'm trying to think of. It seems like most of the comic, and honestly, when you're talking about like the archetypal comic book story,
Hmm.
it seems like they can't break out of the pattern,
Yes.
or and so they're always telling the same story over and over again and changing the costumes or and anytime they try to mess with the plot or the story, it fails miserably, because
Hmm.
when you want to see the good guy beat the bad guy, and the evil, so I don't. To my mind, I think that the whole comic book thing, this includes Marvel and other, it's sort of it's got to go back to being a secular thing, you
I
know,
agree.
like let's give it a rest for a few years and then let's see if we can get back into it.
I
When
agree.
it just, I feel like I have Marvel shoved down my throat like every 2 months.
It's everywhere.
And I can't
And
even keep up. We got so many
no,
new
no
Marvel
idea.
characters. I can't keep up with the universe.
No, it's way too much. And I think that one thing I really like about my personal favorite, like comic book to visual adaptation, my personal favorite is the animated Harley Quinn TV show. That's on HBO. It's made for adults. It's super fun. And what I like about that one is that because it's a TV show, it can be way more experimental. There's an episode where Harley Quinn goes into Batman's head and therapizes him through the death of his parents. And it's
Wow.
actually really emotional. Like you don't watch it and giggle, you're kind of like, "Oh, my heart. It breaks." And it's really well done, and it's because it gets a little experimental and it gets silly, and it's like, what if Harley Quinn tried to be a good person? What if Joker got like really hit in the head and turned into a suburban dad? Like it's insane. It's ridiculous. And it has that comic spirit of being insane and ridiculous. And it works for that. But it's sort of like if Marvel tried to do that, it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't.
You mean
And
they're like a live action thing?
yeah, well, even if
Yeah.
they went animated, it's sort of like their brand is so, as you discussed, it's like good always triumphs. It's not even when it's gray, it's not really that gray. It's
Yeah.
it's a very light shade of beautiful gray. But it just doesn't allow for that experimentation. You know exactly what you're going to get with it, which is nice, but it's not necessarily what I want to see out of a multi-billion-dollar movie. Like, can't you show me something
Multi-billion. Now, are we there
million?
now?
I don't know. I don't care. I haven't been paying attention. It might be, but still, it's sort of like
It's getting close. It's
oh, it
getting
really is.
close.
That's going to be a record. It might be a one of these Avatar sequels that I have to admit I am not excited about. I'm sorry to James Cameron, but I did not like the first one. I did not see the second one. I find the mocap tech still to be a little too uncanny valley. It makes me uncomfortable. That's just me. I'm like, I can't watch a whole movie of these people talking. People. It's kind of scary. That's me
Yeah.
though. I'm a little weird.
Yeah, Avatar is, you like it, you don't like it. I've had a number of people, come up to me and say, "Oh, I love James Cameron, I don't like Avatar." And I'll say, "I'll be sure to tell
I'm
him."
sure that he's going to lose lots of.
Yeah, they make a ton of money, so I don't think he's going to be terribly upset. It'll be our
He's
secret.
okay. I have a very weird question that I bet the answer is no to, but like whenever people say those kinds of things where it's sort of like definitely in quote unquote like intended for James Cameron, sort of like, oh, tell him this, or I never really liked that, or what do you think people want your reaction to be? Because they're talking to you. I
Well,
find that weird. Like if I had a famous friend and people just kept coming up to me and going like, you should really tell Naomi Watts that I don't like her hair color. It'd be like, I'm what? I don't know you.
I, I, you, um, I think that this is their way of getting something off their chest, as opposed to them really thinking that it's like this is. this is a proxy of James Cameron, that I can
Mm,
tell him what I really think. I think there's more
interesting.
in play there than people actually thinking. I'm going to call up Jim and said, "Hey, do you know what Joe Blow thinks?" The
It just feels like
and
they're
conversely, I mean, I
mm,
don't call him up every time. I there are more people, I think. I've never really done a tally, but there are more people that are just like, oh, I fucking love that movie. You know,
cool.
a lot of people are excited about it. I mean, people are always telling me to tell Jim how much they love Titanic. And
Really?
I even had somebody stop me. This was recently, like within the last couple of years, and say, oh, I'm a huge fan of True Lies. And I go, oh, what'd you think of Titanic? Hadn't seen, you know.
The reason I asked is because it just feels like, and I think that while we were at the con, I saw one of those react like that a brief interaction where someone was like made a comment, and it just made me think where it's sort of like, that Lewis is a person, right? Like it's weird because it feels like they're bypassing your personhood. I think it just makes me uncomfortable as an interaction because it's sort of you're your own individual. If you have a chance to meet James Cameron, you can ask him whatever you like. But if you have a chance to meet whomever who's in front of you, you should talk to them. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into
Well,
it.
again, it's you quit being a person and become a proxy. I become
Mm,
oh, you're friends with James Cameron. Tell him that I said, oh yeah, I'll make that happen immediately. But I again, there's you know there's James Cameron, and then there's Jim Cameron, my friend. Okay,
right.
and Jim Cameron is honestly, other than this other persona as a filmmaker, he's a very genuine, down to earth guy, and it's unfortunate that he doesn't project that very often.
Mm-hmm.
He's always projecting James Cameron filmmaker, his brand. You know, and then I know him kind of differently as a human.
Yeah.
So and that's how we relate, really, because I'm not on his level as a filmmaker. He didn't call me up to ask my questions about shots or occasionally script problems, but not very often anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that we relate still as friends.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just like people. It's like, oh, this is my one chance to be heard by James Cameron. I'm going to tell this guy, and maybe Jim hears it. It's not like a rational thing. It's just
Sure.
like uh, brush with greatness. If
That's
I can
fair.
be so bold as to say that.
No, I think that you're right. I guess it never occurred to me because I'm an unusual person. I see the world in different ways, and it's sort of like I look at you, I'm like, you're not James Cameron. I'm not going to talk to you like you are because you're
Yeah,
not. In the same way that I play again, I play roller derby, and I happen to be on a team with some people that are in the roller derby world internationally famous. And it's sort of like if people talk to me that way, I'd be really mad if they're like, oh my gosh, you're in the Hail Marys. I love Peace War so much. It'd be like, great, fly to Texas and tell her. Can I just like go about my day?
yeah.
Like,
I think it's so cool you're in roller derby.
it's very fun. I love it. It's dangerous.
Yeah,
it's
yeah, it is.
it's dangerous. You'll have to come watch sometime because you're in Texas, so
I'm in Texas, up in
you
Denton. I can
are.
come down.
Yeah, it'll be a fun
And
time.
yeah, no, I would like that. I'd like that. I'd
Me
like to come
too.
see roller derby. It's been years. I used to watch it on TV when I was a kid.
Nice. Yeah, it's been a while. It's a little different now, but I still think that like it holds the spirit pretty well. It's still fast. It's still on skates. It's still rough. It's still, it's still what it was. We have more rules now and it's less spectacle and more sport. So, things change, people. Things are allowed to change.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, I've deviated way too far, but I had an actual question and it was pseudo related to the movie. Oh, I don't remember. Oh, I'll just ask a completely unrelated question. You mentioned that you have a lot to learn from bad movies, and we went over like a couple points, but like, what, besides those two examples, like pick a random, like one of your favorite bad movies to discuss, and like, what are some of the top three things that you can learn by looking at, quote unquote, quote unquote, bad media?
Oh well. Um. There's okay. Like sometimes for my class, I would screen. You know. a bad movie, let's say. And then we would go over to the local coffee shop, bar, whatever, off the clock. And
Sure.
I would say, I'd take a beating. Why do you make us watch that crap? And I go, well, how would you fix it? I mean, what would be? And if you can get the discussion started, they would say, well, that scene where the guy did the thing. It's like, I don't know why he couldn't have done this other thing that makes more sense and propels the story forward. And I go, bingo. Now
Nice.
think of yourself and you're reading a script and you're thinking, it's like, how do you make the script better? How do you make the story better? And once you develop that type of thinking, which I think you can get, oh, this is crap. How would I have fixed this?
Mhm.
As opposed to this is, the Godfather. What can I learn from watching The Godfather? Or, Jaws. It was, I mean, I think of those as near perfect movies, so it's not a very good teaching, this is what you should aspire to do, actually, no, you should just aspire to being able to tell good stories. And I think just knowing, the difference between a good story and a bad story, and that's more of a journey than you might know. But,
It is.
if you can develop a tool for, just like, oh, this would be a little more, this would make the character stronger. This would make the story stronger if this happened, as opposed to lazy writing, which is what
Right.
you know, did that answer your question?
It does. It made me think of something, and it also, so I've never made a film. I've never been involved in film production. I studied English and writing in school. That's sort of my involvement.
You're missing nothing.
All that was just to contextualize. Like, I like this YouTube channel called Cinema Therapy. I talk about them a lot. It's a therapist.
I love that channel.
They just did one on Brother Bear, which is a Disney film that is admittedly not my favorite. I don't love it. And one of the reasons I didn't like it is because there's this scene that instead of having dialogue, it's just a Phil Collins song. And I thought when I first saw it, I was like, well, this is ridiculous and cheesy. And then I watched this discussion where they actually talked to, I believe his name is Aaron Pierce, who is one of the co-producers of the movie. And he was talking about how in initial test screenings, they had dialogue in the scene that I was talking about, which is where, the main character confesses to this tiny bear that he killed, I think, his mom. And he was like, we had dialogue. And people were like, this is too on the nose. This is a Disney movie. It is heartbreaking. There is not a good way to recapture the tone from that level of discussion. So they added the music on top of it. And hearing the explanation made me appreciate why it was done. But if I'd only just seen it and moved on with it, I always thought it was stupid. And that's a personal choice. And I bring that up not to say that Brother Bear is a bad film you should all learn from, but it was just sort of like, I didn't like it and I didn't think it was a good movie. So I didn't really consider it too much until, someone pointed out, that all these choices are made for reasons that you may not even consider. And that's what makes the scene either work or not work, what makes a movie good or not good, and also what makes it resonate with its audience, which in this case was a kid's film. Whereas if it was an adult's film, they probably would have been like, yeah, leave the dialogue in, make them cry.
Yeah, no, it's on the nose is a real problem. Film therapy. I think they do a thing where they talk about shoe leather, what we call about shoe leather in the. And it's just like everybody's motivations don't always have to be articulated all the goddamn time.
Right.
And we always use the example I use is, James Bond movies. The bad guy captures James Bond. He's about to torture him to death or kill him or whatever. But first, he reveals his plan in its entirety.
Yes.
So that when James Bond escapes, he can thwart the plan. You were talking, I haven't seen this bear movie, but I've noticed they really are. There's a tendency, particularly dealing with the traumatic event of the character. There's a recent thing to be on the nose or to show every excruciating moment. And I said, go back and look how they handle with Bambi's mother's death.
Hmm.
in the original Bambi. Okay, or if you really want to, get the guys, make them sit through Old Yeller. You know, the ending of Old Yeller,
No,
which is now that's tragic.
I won't watch that movie anymore. I saw it once just to be able to see, like, I saw Old Yeller and I was like, I will never watch that movie again. I
And
don't have
it's
to.
like Schindler's List. You can only watch it one time.
Oh, yeah, no, you have a quota on that film, and when it is
Yeah,
reached, you're like, bye bye.
glad I saw it, but that's it.
No,
Sophie's Choice, Schindler's List,
oh,
Old
there's
Yeller. That's a one
there's
and done.
there's a movie called it's called Sarah's Key. It's not like a famous movie, and I don't think it got a lot of traction. That's a one and doneer. That one made me sob hysterically. The acting performance of devastation by this young girl. This is the story is kind of told in the present and the past of when the Germans invaded France, and this is a young Jewish girl and her family, and
Uh-oh.
yeah, she survives. Her family does not, terrible spoilers. And when she finds out, there's this scene where she just lets out this horrible cry, this scream. And in an airport, by the way, I started crying like a baby. I'd been
Yeah.
fine up until that point, but all of a sudden it was just like, ah! And yeah, I never need to watch that movie again. It was good, but I'm like, nope, nope, quota reached. We're done. Finito. Message received. But that's not the case. Like, for a lot of tragic films, I do find that to be the case. Something, I see it and I don't need to see it again. People come back to Titanic so much,
I
even
know.
though it ends in like bittersweet tragedy, but I'm like, the emphasis is on the tragedy there. It's very sad.
That was there's a funny story about that. We had been screening the movie before the release. We have test screening.
Right.
And then they take the audience members and they give them like forms to fill out right after watching the movie. Well, that's just it's smart in a way I can't describe. But anyway,
Yeah, you can't even leave until you fill out that form.
right, exactly.
They don't let you.
No purging yourself until no relieving yourself. Oh, it's a 3-hour movie. Too bad. Fill out the form first.
Yep.
And in it they ask all kinds of questions, but the two kind of pertinent ones are what is your favorite part of the movie and what is your least favorite part of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And Cameron made me sit down and read like 1,000 of these fucking things, for just to torture me. Anyway, but it was like everybody's least favorite part of the movie. See if you can guess.
The door, not door.
Jack dies.
Yeah.
That Jack dies. And so the studio executives are pointing this and saying, "Is there any way he can live?"
No.
Yes, I know. You're just like you guys. Of course, it's their least favorite part of the movie.
Right.
Because if we take it out, it's not the same movie.
No, it's a different fucking movie altogether. And that's important. Well, it's part of what makes the movie work, I think, is his
somebody,
loss.
a film critic, I'm trying to remember, it was maybe a friend of mine who's actually, just critical of film. I can't remember who said it, but 2 movies came out that year that, and until then, there had been like this tragedy-free ride in Hollywood. Like all we did were, feel good movies with feel good endings. And Sling Blade and Titanic reintroduced the public to tragedy. And they were both wildly successful.
Yeah. I think that you can't shy away from like people go to see movies to feel all kinds of things, not just happy.
Well, it's like, and what is happy? What's a happy ending?
Right, that's so subjective.
It really kind of is at some level. The good guys catch the bad guys. Okay, happy, justice is done.
Well, we were just talking about how that becomes problematic because, we have how many Marvel movies, TV shows, and spinoffs and what have you that have the same formula. We were just talking about this. It's been a now over 1 decade long phenomena of the same story.
Well, I think
Mostly.
for I agree, but I get what bothers me. It isn't that seems to be like the comic book thing, but when it bleeds over into other genres, like I remember when horror films and science fiction films often had, you know, horrible or ambiguous in certainly in the case of science fiction films, there was a little ambiguity there with regard to the ending. Like
Hmm.
the little question mark. The original Blob, they sent, the Blob, they freeze it and then they box it up and they send it to the Arctic, and it's like, we've solved that problem. You
Right.
know, with a little, did they? Because the Blob, it turns into a little question mark at the end.
Yeah, you get the
And I
invisible
said to myself,
denouement.
now we've got global warming. We should revisit the Blob, right?
Oh yeah,
Because it's like thawing out up there.
it's true.
But is it like a lot of science fiction movies, a lot of horror films did not have happy endings?
Right.
You
Or
know,
really resolution at all in many cases.
yeah, I think it'd be nice to see that pendulum swing back a little bit.
I agree. I mean, I am the kind of person that does like neatly tied up things most of the time, but I am, there are certain things where the ambiguity works really, really well. And I think that, for example, like people still debate about Inception, the very end of
Inception.
Inception with the tippily top. There's a ragey debate about that. And coming back to your this famous film, there's a big racket still about whether Old Rose is dead or sleeping. Still, there are people that like that smidgen of ambiguity.
Couldn't tell you.
I
I
say she's dead.
honestly, the way it was written, I mean, we shot like I don't know a dozen separate endings. You know what I
Jesus.
mean? Well, a dozen might be a little hyperbole, but there were a number of, we shot all kinds of stuff to cut together an ending.
Hmm.
And, I like you, it's just ambiguous. There was enough ambiguity in the ending as it stands. Did she die? Is she dreaming?
Hmm.
You know, and anytime that the audience member themselves can kind of fill in the blank, I think that makes sometimes for a much stronger picture. I used to, Star Wars. George Lucas was brilliant when he invented the Force.
Right.
Because for some people the Force is like God and religion, and for other people it's like cosmic karma or some kind of a literal
Whatever.
force in the universe.
Hmm.
And so anytime the audience individually can kind of fill in the blanks for themselves, I think you come up with a more of a relationship between the audience member and the picture.
And that's exactly it. That's the point that I was just coming to my own brain. I was like, well, that lets you feel connected to the movie or the TV show because you get to input your own spin on it. Like the Inception thing, if you want to view it optimistically, it's like, yeah, that top falls right over. He is home. It's real. And if you want to be a little bit on the pessimistic side, it's like, well, maybe he's still dreaming. You never know. You never know. You never know. And it lets you have that dialogue with yourself. Whereas if it's like they show the top falling over, you're like, oh, all right, he's
I can
home.
change with your mood. I'm
Right.
in a
And
good mood. It's a happy ending.
I think
I'm
that's
pissed.
important.
Yeah.
Well, that's what lets people like explore why they like movies so much. It's like I like it because it makes me feel sad or it makes me feel happy or because that joke was really funny. I mean, I have to give it to the Marvels. There is one joke that made me laugh so loudly that I think that the entire theater was offended, but it wasn't even that funny. It's just the way that it was timed and seamed in. It was like that worked. Everything about that joke lined up and timed itself where it was like that fucking worked. Sorry to
They
the
put it
other
in there
seven
for
people.
you.
I think they did. They just followed me around and were like, that joke's gonna
Like
land with that fucking
there's
lunatic.
there's stuff that delights me in movies all the time. Turning
Mhm.
of phrases a little aside, sometimes just a quirky look from a character, and I go, you know what? They put that in there for me. You know,
It's those little attention to detail-y things that, they matter and they enrich the experience. And it's so important to building the world because, you can use really cool CG and everything, and that's fine and everything. But my favorite joke in the Marvels had nothing to do with CG. It was physical comedy. I mean, and that's the thing. It didn't need everything, that happened. There's a glitch in the system where all these three Marvel people keep switching places with each other, and for a second it looks like one of the vulnerable ones is going to get hit. Then a switch happens and it's Brie Larson, and they're like, "Ooh, it's okay. It's just Carol. She just got blasted in the face, so she's fine. It's fine. It's fine." I'm like, to me, that's physical comedy on a level that even if she wasn't a superhero, would have been kind of funny. And it had nothing to do with the costume she was wearing, an explosion in the background, none of that crazy stuff. It was just like a grounded, funny moment. And I think those are the ones that matter. People remember a lot of stuff from Titanic, but there's that silly the couple of iconic scenes are just kind of physical. There's, I'm the king of the world, which is a little silly, but it's two people celebrating a moment. It's not actually about the scenery. It's not actually about where they are in that moment. It's about the feeling of the moment.
I always love the practice swing. You know what I mean? When she's gonna cut the handcuffs with the big heavy axe,
Mm-hmm.
and Jack is like Leo stood there going, "Well, hey, take a practice swing." And
Oh
of
my
course
God.
she does and misses it by about a foot and a half. And he's like, "Okay, let's do this for real."
Was that her really like hacking at a wardrobe? Because that's hard to fake, I think.
I, you know, I'm.
It looked real to me because I
It,
can't aim either. So
I mean, clearly it's not real; it's fake. But
no,
I
no,
mean,
no, no.
it's I don't know if she was like if the whole wardrobe was rigged or if she was good enough that she could hit the same bad spot every time. I wasn't there. I don't know the mechanics of
That's
that, but
fair. I only
it was
wondered about
it was
that.
awesome.
It's a great scene, and I only wondered about that because I'm like, if that was real, that's my level of aim because I would not be able to hit the same place with an axe. That's too unwieldy for me. There's no
Yeah,
way. There's this bunch of people on TikTok because there's everything on TikTok where people just like split wood. And I'm like, I'm impressed because that involves hitting the same place twice. It's
yeah.
never
Those
gonna
people have
happen.
been splitting wood their whole lives.
Yeah, it's
They,
true.
they they've been waiting for TikTok.
Yeah, but I've been drinking water my whole life and I still manage to cough on it at least fucking daily.
Oh,
So
trust me, those people that split wood hurt themselves, miss.
that's
You know,
fair.
bounce axes into their crotch, and
Oh
you
God.
know that when that happens, they're like going, "Oh God, why wasn't somebody filming me? I could get like 1 million views for this."
I do like that America's funniest videos has basically just gone onto the internet now. It's just YouTube and TikTok. I don't have
Yeah,
either of them, but somehow I see it all.
yeah. No, I,
I
I
have
I
YouTube.
thought about rigging the house with it, but my wife wouldn't allow it. But the cat does something crazy like at least once a day, And then I see these other cat videos. I'm like going 6 million views. So
Right?
that's some coin.
I know. I was so it happens the same around here. It's like for the most part, the dogs aren't that interesting. But the other day, Princess tried to catch a fly, and in doing so, just straight ran into the siding of the house, just like a cartoon. And it's like, why wasn't I filming that? That was hilarious. But she doesn't do that often enough. Or I'm like, here we go.
I know. The cat usually is sleeping.
Yeah, basically. I'm like, where are these dogs? Got it. It's adorable, but that's not monetized content. I don't
That's
think.
all right. It's hard to damn used to get a job, cat.
Get more performative. That's the thing. I need one of these dogs to start getting really interested in being on the camera because these two both hate the camera. You bring a camera out to take a photo and they know. I don't know how they know. They know.
The cat knows. The
They
cat
hate it.
knows. The cat hates it.
Yeah. These two hate it. If you try to take a selfie, they're like
I don't want to be part of this.
legit. It's how can I get out of this? It's like you can't. I own you. Or even just
Animals, they're
wiggle.
like Luddites. It's like, we don't like technology.
No, they're also like oobleck, where it's like somehow you were liquid and solid, and I don't understand. Just the absolutely irresponsible mess of an animal. But it's fine. Well, this year you mentioned was big on Titanic stuff, but what have you got going? Anything going on upcoming, or any projects that like personal
I
projects
have
you're working on?
nothing.
Nothing.
I tell everybody out there in listener land, I need a job. Um, no, it's been, uh, uh, had a TV show. Looked like it was going to get greenlit, and then COVID hit, and that I'm going back like 3, 4 years now.
Man.
And when COVID hit, there's a little shakeup in the movie industry. It's not often reported, but there was a big downturn, and even though subscription services saw a boom, the movie business saw kind of a downturn. theater going.
Hmm.
So it was a big shakeup, and it in the movie business.
Makes
So
sense.
my thing didn't make the cut. And then coming out of the pandemic, I started to get something back up on legs. And this was a low budget movie. And then bang, the strikes, the writer's
Yeah.
strike, and then the subsequent actor strike. And they went long enough. And the studios, again, they used this as an opportunity to clean house. And the lady that was fostering my thing, she didn't make the cut. Musical chairs, and she didn't have a chair when it was over. She's,
Oh.
so I'm waiting for her maybe to find another home, or for me to find another home on my own for the project. I've been taking it's the model has changed. Everything since I got in the movie business has changed on the business landscape side of things. And
Hmm.
so I'm running to keep up. And so I think, I may try some, what I considered non-conventional things, but one of my former students says, well, why don't you just put it up on the blacklist? And I
Hmm.
said, I may try that, because I've got like 2 screenplays and a TV show that I need to unload. And
Hmm.
then I'm working with a partner on, we have 2 movies that I'm writing right now with
Nice.
a friend. So I don't know. It might be all over for me at this point, and I just don't realize it. But I'm going to keep chugging along just like I'm employed.
I think that that's important, though. I mean, this sounds like I'm just being like, oh my God, no, a yes man. It's like, I'm not. I think that that is important. It's easy to give up. I've talked about it a little bit, but it's like I have depression, and when it gets really bad for me, it's really easy to just think like, well, I could just stop and it would be easier. Like if I, for example, if I stop this podcast, I don't have to contact people all the time and get rejected for interviews, and I don't have to constantly reach out to people, and it wouldn't take up my time. It's easy to fall into that spiral of, if I quit this, things would be easier. And I think that it takes more energy and courage, honestly, to continue going in the face of failure, because truthfully, it is easier to just give up. It is. It frees up all that time in your day. It frees up all that space in your brain,
I
and you feel
I
better.
could I couldn't agree more. I think there's been a couple of times in my life when I've actually tried to quit, give up, like you say. Um, I too have struggled with depression. I don't know of a creative person who doesn't.
Right.
I mean, I just, and I mean, a truly creative person. And I'm not going to mention any names, but, you can guess some people I know very intimately struggle with depression and all sorts of things. You know, it's not uncommon for people in our business, creative types, to struggle with depression, drug and alcohol abuse,
Mm-hmm.
mental illness, and God knows I've had all of these things in my life. And but quitting doesn't really solve the problem,
No.
And I think having a creative outlet, maybe changing your creative outlet, now that's something that I would entertain. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if I knew how to make a living at, like, I mean, I love photography, I love art, but an amateur magician, and I'm dying. Are you ready for this? My career plans in college was quit the movie business and become a cruise ship magician. I kid you not.
Honestly,
And
that sounds amazing. And I have genuinely considered also working on a cruise ship because I like the open ocean. So like that's not a crazy that's not crazy to
talk to
me.
anyone who's done it, though.
Oh no, I know. I know that it's not a great gig, but like when you tell it to me, I'm kind of like, well, I mean, it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Oh my God, the horror story.
The horror stories of working on a cruise, like no matter what your position,
Yeah.
it's just like I cannot. It seems like, speaking of bravery, it seems like you need to be a very strong and brave person to
Oh yeah.
work on a cruise ship, and not because you're on the ocean, but because you're on a cruise ship.
Yeah. It's like a petri dish of disease at sea.
And people, even if they
Yeah.
weren't diseased, they're just people. But I am glad that you're keeping on, because I think that's important.
Well,
It's
I actually
important.
have good ideas for
See?
it's interesting. It's like I'll sit there and I say, okay, this is it. I'm done. And then, like the next day, it's like, oh, you know what we need now is a blank movie. I think my background is really, I went to the USC, but I went to the producers program, Peter
Mm.
Stark producing program. So I'm like a guy that reads marketing reports. Believe me, it's boring as hell. But also it immediately puts me at loggerheads with studio executives. Because
Sure.
they go, well, why do you think this is? Oh, well, this marketing report shows that. And then they're just like, it's, of course, I can tell from their expression, it's something that not only have they not read, they
Oof.
don't even know, like, where did this come from? You
From
know,
the internet.
that should be my providence, not yours. You
Right.
know, but, I'll come up with an idea and I just can't let it go. You know,
Yeah.
I would. The two new projects we've come up with are in their infancy, so I'm a little leery about giving away details. But I can just say it's like when I came up with it, I was like, oh my god, why did no one else think about this before?
Nice.
It's like you put two elements together, right?
Hmm.
It's like I got chocolate and peanut butter. Oh God, nobody wait, you know. And I stole that from Quentin Tarantino,
I've
who
seen that
made
joke a
the
lot of
same
places.
analogy once about Reese's.
I've seen that joke a lot of places, but I mean, but it works because it's like, yeah, someone had to do this now super logical thing first. Someone had to do it. And yeah, may as well be you, right?
And hopefully, although I have to say, everybody thinks things are new
This
in
is
the
true.
movie business, and it's funny because once I'm a movie nut, and I watch all kinds of movies, good, bad, and indifferent. And I like to watch movies from going back to the infancy of the business. And it's amazing to me how many times I'll be watching an old movie I've never seen before, and I'll see a scene or a line of dialogue or a gag, and I'll be going, "Oh my God, that's where those guys that made Indiana Jones stole this. They stole this gag." or what that
Yeah.
happens all the time. That there's really nothing new. It's like
No.
somebody saw it in a movie from a million years ago and says, "Oh, we'll use that in our picture." So I'm trying to think of an example of like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, the original one. You know how he's suspended down and he goes into like CIA's brain trust with the
Hmm.
thing from the ceiling? That was from an old Peter Ustinov crime
Huh.
movie from the 60s. They did the same gag.
Interesting. I
It's,
mean,
it drives me nuts sometimes.
you're right though. I mean,
There
jokes
should be a
are
police
recycled.
to this. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think it's fun sometimes to see jokes coming around again though. It's fun to see those things referenced, especially when you'll get the reference. It's like, "Oh, I know what inspired you now. I can see where what you watched. I know how you came to this conclusion where you thought this was a good idea because I saw it too."
Yeah.
It works out well, but I'm getting up on my time limit with you, so I want to let you go so that you can go have a good productive day and do
Okay.
other things.
I have a lot to do. I need to
Yes.
catch stray cats in my backyard and take them in to get fixed so I can
Aw.
re-release them in my backyard.
TNR, TNR.
DNR,
That's so
yes,
good. But that's a
yes.
good thing. Speaking of good things to do, I mean, that's good
That's
for your community.
that's the
Good for
bulk
your
of my
yard.
Thanksgiving, and I'm going to build a zip line. The kids want a zip line for Christmas.
Oh my God, that sounds like so much fun. I also want to zip line for Christmas
We have a
now.
we have a big backyard, so
Into it.
we're going to rig a zip line for the kids. So that's my holiday experience. Okay, so do you have a last question or anything at all that we can end on at least keep it back on Titanic or
Hmm. What is your favorite line of the movie?
in Titanic?
Yeah,
Oh, that Russian babe, anesthesia.
I
No,
did get to.
I guess I'm king of the world. I don't really know that I have a favorite line. I like the movie. I like the whole movie. I think one of my favorite bits is I can't remember the rich guy's name.
Aster?
Huh?
Aster?
I think it was Astor. Which one was the one they put a life belt on him and he hated it. So he went down, he took off his life belt, he and his butler put on their dress for dinner.
Guggenheim.
Guggenheim, thank
There
you.
we go.
And Guggenheim supposedly gave his life belt to like a third class woman or something.
Mhm.
Anyway, when the steward that had tried to get him into the thing walks past him again, and he goes, "What? Why aren't you wearing your life belt?" And Guggenheim said, I want my wife to know that we dressed our best and we're prepared to go down like gentlemen. And that's supposedly a direct quote, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Jim comes up with this little aside where he goes, "But I would like a brandy."
Yes. Very, very appropriate.
I think that would be me. You know what I mean? The plane's crashing. Excuse me, miss, is the bar open?
It better be.
Yeah, exactly.
On the way
All right,
down.
so, well, Alexa, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you for coming on. I hope that we run into each other in person again soon. I will keep you abreast of Texas roller derby stuff. But
please do.
I
Please
will
put me on the roller derby attention list. I would like
I will.
that. And
Awesome.
if I next time I get an excuse to come down to Austin, I'll ring your bell.
Yeah, let me know. But happy holidays, and I'll talk to you hopefully soon.
Okay, happy Thanksgiving.
You
Take
too.
care.
Bye.
Bye.